To make it easier to see this presentation, you can maximize your screen by clicking the little box that looks like this in the bottom right-hand corner of the video. So go ahead and click that icon now, and we'll get this webinar started, hosted by Darren Sugiyama and Lionsmark Capital. We hope you enjoy this presentation.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Have you ever heard anyone say anything negative about a Roth IRA? I never have. So why do people like Roth IRAs so much? Well, a couple of reasons. They like the idea of contributing after-tax dollars in order to get a tax-free income. And they also like the fact that there's no RMDs in a Roth IRA. People like Roth IRAs so much that many of them do Roth conversions. This is where they roll over their traditional IRAs into a Roth, and they're willing to pay the taxes now, instead of having to pay income tax on their retirement income later. But the problem is, there's a limit to how much you can contribute to a Roth IRA. And if you make too much income, you aren't allowed to do a Roth. But if there was an asset that you funded with after-tax dollars, just like a Roth, that grew tax deferred, just like a Roth, where there were no RMD requirements, just like a Roth, but you can contribute over $100,000 per year, unlike a Roth, and there were no income limitations either, unlike a Roth. And if you died along the way, your loved ones would get more than the account value, tax-free. Now imagine being able to use leverage, where a bank would put up 4 times what you contributed. That's Rothish. It's not a Roth IRA, but it's taxed like a Roth. There's no RMDs like a Roth. There's no income restrictions, and you can contribute over $100,000 per year if you wanted. And you can contribute to it for as little as 5 years or as much as 20 years. If this sounds good to you, then Rothish might be right for you. So as an advisor, if this sounds appealing to you, and you think your clients would like the idea, then watch this webinar where I explain how it works, why it works, and how to share this with your clients.
I like it a lot.
Hey guys, Darren Sugiyama here, CEO and founder of Lionsmark Capital, the most transparent premium financing intermediary in the life insurance industry. So in today's webinar, we're actually going to take a look at a recording of a webinar I did just a few days ago. And it's about 2 brand new loan models, premium financing loan models that I recently developed. One is called Rothish and the other one is called Reverse Rothish. And it's really for the type of client that wants to pay into a structure for 5 years, as opposed to my normal 10 years type of premium financing design. And so we're going to take a look at both loan models, as well as discuss what type of client each one is better suited for. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So there's 2 different versions of this. This is brand new stuff. When I say brand new, I literally finished the development of this less than 2 weeks ago. So this is hot off the presses. I'm going to talk about 2 different types of clients, right? One type of client says, I've got the money now, I'm making good money now. I don't know what my future holds. And so I would rather pay into something over a period of 5 years as opposed to 10 years, right? Because most of my designs, client contributes for 10 years. In this one, it's only 5. So they're either going to pay 5 years now, or the second type of client is the type of client that says, my money's tied up in my business or in inventory or real estate or whatever it is. I don't have the cash flow to do this now. I like the concept, but I want to wait 5 years and do this later. So we're going to talk about both types of clients here. So let's start with the one where they have the money, they want to pay it now. So this is the Rothish design here. Client pays 1x. So let's use units of 100,000, right? Client pays 100,000 a year for 5 years. Bank pays nothing. And then in year 6 through 10, the bank contributes 4 times what the client contributed per year in year 6 through 10. Client pays nothing in those years 6 through 10. 100,000 out of pocket paid by the client for the first 5 years. then nothing paid by the client in year 6 through 10. The bank finances 4 times more the premium going in. Client's going to accrue the interest. And if you look at the bottom of the screen there, I think this is really important to talk about. The total amount of interest accrued versus the amount of dollars that the client has contributed out of pocket. They've actually contributed more dollars than the premium that they borrowed and accrued, or they should say the interest that they accrued. So this is very conservative. It is not over leveraged. Again, we're exiting the loan in year 11, and then income starts right there at age 65. If we compare this design to a non-financed 5-pay, clients got the same outlay, right? Non-financed 5-pay is the orange section there. Same carrier, same product. But look at the income drawdown difference, right? 82,000 in the non-financed, 118,000 in the Rothish design there. So we're getting 44% more income coming out. And at the end of the 40th year, if we add the total income drawn down plus the cash values on either side, we've got 82% more cash benefit in the financed Rothish design than we do in non-financed policy. And if you look over on the right-hand side of the screen, 2.5 times more face amount initially. And then if we go all the way out to age 89, we've got 6.2 times more net death benefit in the Rothish design versus the non-finance policy. So you're probably seeing a pattern here. And the pattern is I'm going to show the client step by step, within reason, every other alternative decision they could make and what the outcomes would look like compared to what I'm proposing. Here is the comparison between the Rothish design and a non-insurance based stocks and bonds account. Again, same dollars in, 100,000 a year for 5 years. If you look at the income drawdowns, the stocks and bonds account, when we draw down the same annual income, the account balance gets so low, they cannot pull out any more income until the 38th year. So overall, the Rothish design has produced 3.5 more times income and 4.7 times more cash benefit. If you look at the cash value and the account value in the stocks and bonds account by the end of the 40th year. So again, look at the net death benefit there. Maybe they don't care about the net death benefit. Maybe they only care about the accumulation and cash value. All right, let's look at the accumulated cash value. The green, again, is the Rothish, and the blue is the stocks and bonds account. So, I mean, I was so excited when I did this comparison, because for a client that wants to limit the window of contributions, in this case, 5 years, we're showing them, again, within reason, every other logical alternative. And as Paris Hilton says,
That's hot.
that is hot. Okay, moving on. The type of client that maybe they say, well, my money's tied up right now. I don't want to pay 5 years starting today. I want to wait 5 years before I start contributing. So in this type of situation, I developed something called reverse Rothish. So we're going to reverse the order in terms of who's contributing. So in this scenario here, it's going to require less leverage, but the bank is going to put up 1.5 times what the client puts up. And the bank is going to do that in years 1 through 5. Client pays nothing for the first 5 years. In years 6 through 10, the client is going to pay in 1x. So let's talk in terms of $100,000. In this case, in years 1 through 5, bank finances $150,000 in annual premium. Client accrues the interest. Starting in year 6, bank contributes nothing. Client contributes $100,000. So this is how this model looks here. Again, there's the $150,000 that the bank is putting up in the first 5 years. And then in years 6 through 10, the client's going to put up 100,000, bank puts up nothing. So the client's going to accrue the interest on the first 5 years of borrowed premium all the way through the 10th year. And again, if you look at the bottom of the screen there, it says, again, not over leveraged at all. the client is putting in just about the same as the interest that they're accruing. We're going to exit the loan in year 11, and then we can start drawing income down here starting at age 65. So I thought through this, right? I thought, what is the logical alternative to them not doing what we're looking at on the screen here, right? Let's say they say, I don't want to pay now, I want to pay later. Outside of this, what else could they do, right? Well, they could just wait and buy a 5-pay $100,000 annual premium policy 5 years later. The question becomes, what is the cost of waiting? What is the cost of doing that? Age, maybe health. In this scenario here, I assume same health rating, but they are starting 5 years later. So in the orange there, the policy doesn't start until age 55. Client's age 50 now. So in both scenarios, the client is going to start contributing $100,000 a year for 5 years, starting in year 6, and they do that through year 10. And then when we look at the income drawdowns, the cost of waiting, that orange section there, the income drawdown is only $54,000 versus in the green section there with the Rothish, it's $82,000. So if we look at that comparison, the total income drawn down plus the end of year 40 cash value, 91% more benefit to the client if they do this reverse Rothish and get in now at the current age as opposed to waiting when they're 5 years older. I think that's pretty powerful. All right. If you look at the beginning of the 6th year, the client is going to have 44% more face amount that they started immediately versus waiting and doing a policy 5 years later. Obviously, in the first 5-year period, the client's got zero death benefit if they wait 5 years and they do nothing until year 6. And then if we look at over time, by age 89, the Rothish design has 71% more death benefit after they've pulled out significantly more income, right? Almost double the income. If you want more specific information about the different loan models that we have, actually an 11-time author, the 11th book I put out earlier this year in January, Premium Finance Life Insurance, The Key to Effective Estate Tax Planning. This is the 2024 version. I wrote the original edition of this book in 2021, and a lot has changed in the premium financing world since 2021. So that's why I updated this. I must be a masochist because I have kind of committed myself to releasing a new version of this book every January of every year because so much has changed. Like as an example, this Rothish concept and the reverse Rothish concept, these types of loan models did not exist in January when I first put this book out. So I'm constantly updating all of my content. In addition to this, I'm actually doing a book release this coming June. This is my new book. It's called IUL for Dummies and Aspiring Know-It-Alls. I get into the inner workings of how the IUL works in terms of floors, caps, charges, different index options, volatility controlled index options, S&P 500 index options. I look at historicals. This is a great tool for you to just really become kind of a self-proclaimed know-it-all when it comes to IULs. It's also a great tool to give to your clients if they want to know those inner workings. And I always tell people, even if the client doesn't read it, gifting the client a book like this just really skyrockets your credibility. And so this is coming out in June. We also do typically about 2 webinars a month, and I do 6 live events a year. If you go to my website here, you can actually get on the mailing list if you're interested in attending either a webinar or a live event. Scroll down on the home page all the way to the bottom. And right there, e-newsletter for advisors. You can put in your email address and your name, and you'll get notified. And then if you're interested in attending a live event, go up to the very top and click upcoming events. And there's a calendar of events there. So those are all the topics there. Who premium financing is right for and wrong for. We've got a panel discussion with carriers and lenders. I'm going to do a session about attracting the right type of clients, as well as how to present. I'll go through our client engagement process, and then I'll also talk about how to become the right advisor, and you can register right there. There actually is no cost to attendees for this particular event here. We have sponsors, carrier sponsors, bank sponsors that are funding the large majority of the expense to put this on. Let's go ahead and open it up to questions. We've got, actually see some questions in the chat here. Let me open up the chat 1 second here. Okay, John Martin asks, is the Rothish plan different than the Kaizen plan? What is the minimum annual premium? Great question. Kaizen does extremely small premium finance policies. And I understand it's all relative, right? If you have a client that wants to put in like 20 grand a year, 30 grand a year for 5 years, you could either take that case to the Kaizen folks or just sell them a non-financed 5-pay. Quite frankly, I think that if the client has that little budget to put into a life insurance policy, they really should not be premium financing. There's just more moving parts than that person's budget or liquidity. That's why I've made the decision when I do the Rothish design, the minimum annual input is 100,000 for 5 years, right? 50,000 maybe if they're under the age of 45. But when you think about the concept of financing, right, the client has to have the income, the liquidity, the financial sophistication to understand leverage. And when someone is quote unquote only putting in 20 to 30,000 a year for 5 years, that type of client, typically their income level and their net worth level, in my opinion, is not financing worthy. And when I say financing worthy, you're asking a client to be able to roll with the punches just a little bit in premium financing. Because once you start the policy, you can't just automatically drop the death benefit in half whenever you want and stop the premiums going in. Like, as an example, I have a client that was, the case was not sold by me, but they used our financing model, and they were putting in 60,000 a year for 10 years. Okay. I get an email from the husband of the client, and this is a successful couple, right? But not wealthy. Income below 400,000 a year. I think they make about 300 or so. So they're still doing well, but they own their own business, and their business has suffered for the last couple of years. And so they said, we can't afford to put in our 60,000 anymore. What are our options? Well, if they were in a non-finance policy, it's not that big a deal because the death benefit would have been lower, and we wouldn't have any debt associated with the policy. But because it was financed, the only way to stop paying premiums is reduce the death benefit as much as possible, as fast as possible. And as fast as possible isn't until 4 years from now. So when they drop the death benefit 4 years from now, because they've stopped paying in premiums, for the next 3 years, they had a $3.2 million death benefit with no premiums going in for 3 years, right? So by the time you're able to drop the death benefit in the 4th year, their death benefit drops down to, I think, 332,000 a year, down from 3.2 million. And then it slowly declines, and the policy is showing a lapse at age 97. But by the time you get that far down the road, the death benefit is only like 100 grand. So that's why I don't believe everyone is right for premium financing. If the client has enough income, but more importantly, they have enough net worth and they have enough liquid assets, if their business tanks for a couple of years, which happens when you're an entrepreneur, it's happened to me before when being an entrepreneur for the last 20 something years, probably happened to you at some point as well, right? You got to be able to roll with the punches. And so if the client has enough liquidity, if their income gets dried up for a little bit, they've got enough liquid cash sitting on the side where they can still fund the policy the way it's supposed to be funded. But if they're solely living off of income and they don't have a lot of liquid, they could go from making, 500 grand a year to 200 grand a year, or 200 grand a year to making 80,000 a year. So I would not do, it is not a knock against Kaizen, I wouldn't do premium financing, period, with a client below a certain net worth amount and below a certain income amount. And I would also look at the profession they're in. In other words, if you have a cardiologist making 600 grand a year, I haven't seen too many cardiologists out in front of their clinic with a cup in their hand begging for money because the economy took a downturn. However, I've seen tons of entrepreneurs, small businesses, manufacturing widgets or whatever. They can go from making 600 grand a year to making negative, right? So we always want to make sure we're doing the right thing for the client. So that's the first part, difference between my plan and Kaizen plan. The loan model is obviously different. That's what we looked at. The collateral issue, Kaizen, they say you're never going to have to post collateral. That's BS, because you can't say never. If you get really bad index credit returns in the first 10 years and the borrowing interest rates increase, not that that would ever happen, and they're accruing debt, the policy cash value won't be worth as much, and the debt amount is going to be greater because they're accruing more interest. And in that scenario, the cash value could become underwater the loan amount. So in that case, you would have to post collateral in the Kaizen policy, or arrangement, I should say. Right? Doesn't mean it's bad, but saying things like no collateral ever, that's nonsense. In the Rothish design, the way I show it, I'm showing a very low expected amount of collateral in years 9 and 10, but there is some collateral, right? Very, very little, but there's a little bit. I actually like showing the client just a little bit of collateral requirement, even if I think they're not going to have to post any at all, because it's about setting expectations, right? If you tell the client 0 collateral and they have to post a penny, they're pissed. If you tell a client they're going to have to post 100 grand in collateral, and then they only have to post 50 grand or 10 grand or 5 grand, you're a hero. And if they don't have to post any, you're a miracle worker, right? I prefer to live in the world of under promising and then over delivering, as opposed to the other way around. Okay, let's see. Question from Carrie. What are the requirements for the ideal client? Great question. I'm going to make it really easy for you. My website was built and is continually evolving to be a resource for advisors like you guys. So if you go to advisor services in the very top, and then go down to FAQs, right, frequently asked questions, and then go to minimum requirements right here. I've got the carrier minimum requirements up here, the lender minimum requirements, and then the Lions Mark minimum requirements. I'll go through the carriers real quickly here. Each of them has a different net worth requirement. So Penn Mutual is the highest minimum net worth requirement at 15 million. Pacific Life and Nationwide are 10. Transamerica and Securian are 5 million. National Life Group is 2.5 million. Same thing with Lincoln if you're under the age of 51. And then Allianz, you either have to have $1 million net worth or only a $500,000 net worth if you make 200 grand or more, or if you make 400 grand a year in income, they don't care what the client's net worth is. Now, that's that particular carrier's requirement. But if I'm talking to a prospective client and they have 0 net worth, but they're making 400 grand, and let's say they're in sales. You ever know someone in sales that was making 400 grand that went unemployed for a year or two? That had no money in the bank? I know tons of, I live in Orange County, California. That's like 95% of the high income salespeople in Orange County, right? They might be making $500,000, but they're spending 550,000, right? going in debt. And so even if a carrier says, hey, will approve this client for premium financing, that's not good enough for me. I want to make sure this is the right thing for the client. I don't want to get bad blood out there. I don't want to have a client coming back feeling like they were misled or feeling like they got hard sold. I sure as heck don't want to be involved in a lawsuit. And so we're making sure that this is right for the client from the very beginning. Okay. Can't wait for your new book. I think you're going to love it. It's like my style is typically, it's very blunt, right? I'm calling people out, not specific people, but I'm calling out certain perspectives that people have in this industry that are completely false, completely over exaggerated, completely irresponsible. You got a bunch of people that are just trying to sell stuff as opposed to truly help the client. And that's discouraging from an industry overall standpoint. In some ways, that makes my life a little harder because I have to deal with people that think like that. I have to deal with clients that have had really bad experiences with insurance agents. But overall, that's where all the opportunity is. Because if you're one of the few people with integrity and honor and they're doing this the right way, you stand out because the large majority of insurance agents are not doing this the right way. Okay, Steve Farns, let's see. The financing which starts in year 6, is it locked down now, or do you go searching for it in the 6th year? Excellent question. I love that question. We always go to a lender that knows and understands all of our different loan models. And so up front, before the policy even gets issued, I get a term sheet from the lender, outlines the loan parameters. They acknowledge the fact that they understand that the lending doesn't start until year 6. As we get towards the end of year 5, usually about 2 months out, roughly 100 days out from renewal, we formally go back to that lender and see what their rates look like. But I have 18 different banks on my platform. So if I can find a lender that offers a better rate, better loan terms that are more advantageous to that specific client, we are not locked into having to use the lender that we got the term sheet from 5 years earlier. So lots of flexibility, but we are not just saying, oh, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out in 5 years. Absolutely not. We're making sure this is done right. So I hope you enjoyed the webinar that you just watched. If you would like to see how we position this Rothish type of concept, go ahead and go to rothish.com. Again, that's ROTHISH.com. And there's a video of me explaining the general concept and really walking you through the benefits of engaging in this type of, I guess, non-investment investment, right? It's not a Roth IRA, kind of feels like a Roth, it's taxed like a Roth, it behaves similar to a Roth, but is not a Roth IRA. So think about the type of client that would, if they could, put more money into an IRA, or a Roth IRA, I should say, where there wasn't a maximum limit that they could contribute, where there wasn't an income cap that restricted them from parking their money there because they make too much money. And then on top of that, imagine if they could use the power of leverage to kind of turbo boost that Roth IRA type of structure. That description is kind of what Rothish is all about. So again, to be very, very clear, this is not a Roth IRA. It only behaves similar to the concept of Roth. The underlying product here is obviously an IUL, and we are using one of my very unique methods of premium financing, that IUL, to be not only more efficient, but more conservative, puts the client in a better LTV position, and overall is a great solution for the right type of client. So again, go to rothish.com, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Have a great day.